Did you know this?
25 things you didn't know in 5 minutes. Did you know this how traps for mice looked in the 19th century? Picture miniature cannons loaded just like firearms of that era. A historical mousetrap. Did you know this planning to get inked? Check out this chart first. Explore the body zones where you might feel more or less pain during the tattooing process. Did you know this ocean have depths with the mighty sperm whale, equipped with teeth only in its lower jaw? Nature's dental design at its finest. But teeth aren't the only fascinating aspects of our animal friends. Did you know this unique yawning technique of a pelican? They stretch by pushing their spine through their mouth. A fascinating stretch routine, don't you think? Did you know this world of Pillier's web anomaly? The defense cells in this congenital condition sport nuclei that resemble sunglasses. Nature's own fashionable twist. Did you know this step back 100 million years to meet the arachnid chimera, a hybrid of a spider and a scorpion? Marvel at the wonders of prehistoric Earth. Did you know this extraordinary growth of the world's tallest man, Robert Wadlow, from 5 years old to 81? His journey is truly remarkable. And while we're on the topic of transformations, let's explore a virtual aging experiment. Did you know this magic of Photoshop? Catch a glimpse of how Michael Jackson might have looked at 50 without all those plastic surgeries. Did you know this mysteries of an auto-compression machine? Watch as a car transforms into a compact cube of metal. A mesmerizing process. From machines to monarchs, let's journey through the ages with a royal revelation. Did you know this about Queen Elizabeth's incredible reign through the ages on currency bills? A living timeline captured in royal portraits. Did you know this lose yourself in the Sahara Desert's fine sand that levels and erases footprints? Navigating this sea of sand has its unique challenges. Did you know this discovery of the mosquito-free haven, Iceland? A place where these buzzing creatures simply don't exist. Time to plan your Icelandic getaway. Did you know this? Unlock the secrets of password security with a revealing graph. The more characters and combinations, the stronger the defense against hacking. In this digital age where cyber threats loom large, understanding the nuances of creating a robust password is your first line of defense. Did you know this? We'll enter the world of fluorescence. Explore how body parts lacking enzyme 1S glow under UV light, creating a captivating display. Did you know this that you're lucky so as you weren't around 100 million years ago when the arachnid chimera rolled the earth, a fusion of spider and scorpion? Did you know this? Ever wondered about the speed of raindrops? It turns out, the size matters. A 1 millimeter raindrop can reach speeds of 14 kilometers per hour, making raindrops quite the speedy travelers. Did you know this? Take a trip to the moon with astronaut Alan Shepard, the only person to play golf on the lunar surface. A swing like no other, and no worries, they never did find his golf ball. As the golf ball soared in the moon's reduced gravity, it symbolized the triumph of exploration and the indomitable spirit of discovery. Though the ball's landing site remains unknown, the memory of that unique swing echoes through the cosmos, reminding us of the extraordinary feats accomplished beyond Earth's bounds. Did you know this? Explore the magic of kangaroo pouches. Did you know that baby kangaroos, also known as joeys, are born around the size of a gummy bear? Witness the cuteness of nature at its finest. Did you know this? There are approximately 2 million possible sandwich combinations. Dive into the world of culinary creativity and explore the endless ways to stack your favorite ingredients between slices of bread. Did you know this? When lightning strikes sand, it leaves behind a unique pattern called a fulgurite. Watch as the intense heat fuses the sand particles into mesmerizing glassy structures. Did you know this person named as Jama Mori, a 90-year-old gamer and YouTuber? Age is just a number as she conquers virtual realms. Did you know this will challenge your eyes with an optical illusion? Is it a snake or a legless lizard? Explore the fascinating world of camouflage and trickery in the animal kingdom. Did you know this? Creating the animated film 101 Dalmatians required animators to draw an estimated 6 million spots. Did you know this? The grandeur of Samsung's Times Square installation in South Korea, with a resolution of 7,840 x 1,953 pixels. Did you know this symphony of the Aurora Borealis? Witness the mesmerizing dance of lights in the northern skies and the science behind this natural spectacle. There you have it, folks. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon to stay updated with more interesting content. Thanks for watching.